Hello friends, welcome back. So today we are going to talk about Apache Kafka. We have come up with a new course and will in this course we'll talk about Apache Kafka. Apache Kafka is one of the widely used event streaming platform and most of the 80% around 80% of the Fortune 500 companies uses Apache Kafka. Now, without any delay, let's jump into what is Apache Kafka and what it can be used for, and later we'll talk, about how it can be used in different applications. So, uh, let's start. So, first thing is what is Apache Kafka? So, Apache Kafka, this definition I have taken from the Apache Kafka website. So, what is Apache Kafka? Apache Kafka is an open source distributed event streaming platform. Now, we have two things here: distributed and event streaming platform. First, let's talk about what is event. So event can be anything like let's take the example of Amazon app, right? So on Amazon app, whenever a user logs in or rather registers, then that is an event for Amazon backend system. When user search for something, that is an event. When user adds something to the cart, that is an event, and when user purchases something, that is an event. So everything that is happening in the software, that is an event. And Kafka provides a stream for those events, right? And apart from that, it's open source, and it's distributed. So we'll talk about these things, what it is. First, let's talk about what is event streaming. So event streaming is kind of practice of capturing real time data. So there can be a lot of sources for real time data, like web application or mobile apps, or databases. So any change made to the database can be an event to another system, or different sensors like temperature sensors or wind sensors, or there can be n number of sensors, or mobile devices, or cloud services like AWS, or Azure, and different software applications creates from these things create a stream of events, and it is being captured by uh, you know backend systems, and it is being captured through Kafka. So in Kafka, what can happen is that there can be different source systems. So these source systems can be anything among these, like web application databases, or software applications, mobile devices, and they keep on producing different events to the Kafka. And from our side, we can have different consumers, or rather the destination of this data, who can anytime come and listen to these events, and then they can use whatever the way they want to use. So there can be a usage of these events for analytics purpose, or for other usage can be doing some kind of financial transaction, etc., etc. So there can be n number of uses for event stream. So let's see, in the next slide we'll be seeing what and all things event stream can be used for. So as I mentioned earlier also, that event streaming can be used for financial transactions. So there can be, so when you make a bill payment, or you make a purchase on Amazon or any other website, then for those financial transactions, this event streaming can be used. Apart from that, we can use it for monitoring different for logistics applications. We can monitor trucks or fleets or shipments, or rather in case of a ride hailing app like Uber, or in India we use Ola. So they're also, so let me give you an example. So whenever when we search for any ride on Uber, right, what happens is that we search, or Uber rather search around 1 kilometer radius of you, that is there any taxis available around it. So how does it get to know that any taxi is available around 1 kilometer of the user or not? So these taxis, or rather the mobile device sitting in the taxi, keep on sending the events to Uber backend, and Uber backend in turn uses that data to update the latest location of a particular taxi or a cab, right? So this way they provide services. So of course event streaming is very useful in case of ride hailing apps. Apart from that, event streaming can be, or can serve as a foundation for data platform. So different events can be produced to event streaming services like Kafka, and it can be consumed, and rather and later it can be used for for data lake or data platforms. In current these days we have this microservices architecture also a lot being used in our software designs. So to do async communication between different microservices, Kafka is being used a lot. Apart from that, for monitoring patients in hospitals, and in case of emergencies, we can ensure timely treatment for the patients. For all these things, we can use event stream. And Kafka is one of the best, I would say, event streaming platform, and it's open source, so it's a free. So you just have to use put it on bare minimum virtual machines, and it will be up and running. You don't have to put any cost for this. That's why it is the most widely used event streaming platform. After that, coming to why Kafka. So Kafka, of course, it's a distributed system. So let's talk about what is a distributed system. So we in softwares we can have two kind of systems. Like one is a standalone system, and one is a distributed system. So standalone system will be always inside a single machine, and it may not be highly available. So what does it mean by highly available? Highly available means that it at any cost that system will be available, whatever it takes, right? So but in case of a standalone system, if that machine goes down, then that software won't be available. But in case of distributed system, we have a cluster of machines working to achieve a single goal, and that is in case of Kafka, provide a event streaming platform. So that if a one machine goes down, then another machine will be available for serving for a user, for application, right? Apart from that, Kafka is highly elastic, so it can be scaled up to hundreds of machines, and it can accordingly the number of events also can be scaled, right? Apart from that, Kafka is a very fault tolerant. Fault tolerant means that if any machine goes down inside a cluster of Kafka, then it will be able to handle it using some kind of replication. Apart from that, Kafka has a very low latency. So what does it mean by very low latency? So low latency means that producing a message to Kafka and reading message from Kafka is very fast. So Kafka uses logs for storing the data into into the disk. So this way Kafka, there are other reasons also that we will talk about later, but this storing in a log format makes the Kafka very fast. So reading and writing the data is very fast in Kafka, Apart from that, we talked about this earlier also. Kafka is horizontally scalable. That means it can be scaled up to hundreds of machines, and it has a very high throughput. So millions of messages can be produced and read from Kafka, right? So this way we had introduction of Kafka. So in our next session, we'll be talking about installation of Kafka in our local system, and apart from that, we'll be talking about console consumer and console producer. So using console consumer and console producer, we can from producer we can produce the message from the terminal to Kafka, and using console consumer we can consume using the terminal only. So there are some utilities provided by Kafka, and these are console consumer and console producer. So stay tuned, we'll be having a new lecture in which we'll talk about all these things.